Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel for this Sunday night on October 27th. I hope you're all ready for Halloween. I've got my scary mask on. I hope you're not afraid. It's going to be a nice, friendly presentation. We're going to have a lot of people come here. This is the most people we have ever had in the room. And somehow, magically, we all fit. And Google Meets is still working. However, Google Meets has done something to us that we didn't know it was going to do. Usually at this part of the show, we start off by taking you to the calendar. And so we're going to do that tonight. Let me see if I can get this to work tonight. The entire screen, share. And am I sharing like I'm supposed to be? Yeah, I'm sharing like I'm supposed to be. Oops, this isn't usually here. And that should be bigger. Oops. I know. I wanted to go there. You know, we've got the calendar here, and there's a couple of problems with this calendar. One is our problem. We got a bunch of blanks here, and that becomes your problem, and you can help fix it. You know people, including yourself, who can give good presentations about something important in astroimaging. We need you to pitch in. We've been saying this for a while, and you guys don't realize is that the hardest part of getting this astroimaging channel together is getting people to come along and share a little bit. It can be the very basic beginner stuff because we do have a lot of beginners watching us. And if you've worked with beginners, you know some things that you tell them every time. What are the 10 rules that you would give to every beginner? You know, that kind of stuff. Well, if you can work it up by November 17th, you can be on the astroimaging channel. Seriously, that's how hard it is to get on the astroimaging channel. Tonight, we've got a special program where we're going to talk about various astroimaging special interest groups. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later. And George is coming next week. George is going to tell us about Hocus Pocus and a lot of other things that happen in NINA, nighttime imaging, and whatever. NINA, well, that's what we all call it anyway. Now, the other problem with our calendar, as you can see, it says that we're going to be having astroimaging channel shows all day long, and we aren't. We're still going to be having them at 9:30 Eastern U.S. time. Remember, that changes not too long from now, okay? We're going to be switching back to regular non-daylight savings time, standard time. But we are not going to be having astroimaging channel on all day. We just think you'd probably get bored after the first 12, 14 hours, you know? So, but somehow or another, Google has changed the way they publish their calendar. And we didn't know about it until I opened it up tonight because I was going to have to review what's coming up over the next 6 or 8 weeks. Anyway, we need more presenters. Ron Brecher's coming in on November 10th, and he's going to tell us about his adventures with some really big focal length telescopes and stuff like that. Okay, we're back to my infinity screen. You can see all the people we usually have over here. Usually we got about 6 people over here, and now we've got a whole lot more. I want to introduce to you Marsha. I'm going to stop sharing if I can find which of these stop sharings is the real one. Marsha is going to tell us, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what a special interest group is, and then Marsha's going to take over and introduce some people that'll tell you a lot more. A special interest group is a smaller group formed within a big club. And that club may have 150, 200, 300 members with all sorts of different interests, visits, the visual, camping, or telescope making, or any one of a number of things that they like to talk about. But there are in every club, I imagine by now, a lot of people who are interested in astroimaging, and it's good for them to kind of separate themselves a little bit and get together and learn a little bit more from each other in a smaller group. And we've got representatives from 4 clubs across the nation that have done that, and I think you may find out something that you can use in your club. So Marsha, you ready?
I suppose.
Take over.
Good. Well,
you're in charge.
Thank you. We're fortunate to hear from 4 clubs across the country. We've got somebody from California, from Denver, from Virginia, and here in Boston. so the clubs will share things they've learned, things that have gone well, things that haven't. The astroimaging groups need to deal with beginning imagers, intermediate imagers, and advanced imagers, and balancing all of the needs of those groups. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Harrington from the Riverside Astronomy Society. Mark, go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Mark, and I'm from the Riverside Astronomical Society. Let me, hold on, let me share my screen if it lets me. Okay.
Remember, everyone, turn off your video.
Says I'm sharing my screen presentation.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So again, my name is Mark from the Riverside Astronomical Society, and we have a club that's been in business for about 67 years. We started in 1957, and our membership averages around 300. Some years a few more, some years a few less. We started our Astro imaging group about 8 months ago, so we're brand new. And I'm really thankful for the Astro imaging channel putting this together, because it'll give us an opportunity to learn what other clubs with a longer existence and more members are doing, because we're trying to grow our club and our Astro imaging group. Right now, we've got about 22 members who may pop in and out of various meetings, but on any given time over the last 8 months, we have about 12 regular participants, and those participants are probably, like every other club, a mix of experienced as well as inexperienced imagers. I like to call them emerging astro imagers, because we hope that they'll get to an experience level. And at the moment, our meetings are 100% virtual via Zoom. We do our membership meeting via Zoom because, frankly, it's the easiest way to do it. But we started it, our astro imaging group, because when I started in astrophotography, I had no concept of astronomy, never used a telescope, didn't know anything about it, went out and for retirement decided this would be a great hobby. So I bought a C11 with a monochrome camera and narrowband filters, and wondered why I couldn't do anything. You know, it took me a year to figure out that just because I could go to a specific object in the sky didn't mean I was polar aligned. So it took a year just to realize the importance of polar alignment. And in that process, I kept thinking to myself, wouldn't it be great if somebody were there to kind of help me? And even though I belong to a imaging club or astronomy club, there wasn't a lot of help. So anyway, but looking forward, I noticed that there was a shift. When I first started, most, or at least 50% of the people were visual, and others were astro imagers. And everybody kind of seemed in their own zone, and that always weighed on me a little bit. And a few years went by, and I assumed a role in the club leadership, becoming a club secretary. And in that role as club secretary, I started seeing more and more the opportunity and the potential for the club to grow and do so much more. And I don't know, just naturally things took over, and I thought, we really need to address this situation. How do we get people like me, who started off and didn't know anything about astrophotography, educated and experienced and working with someone, and relying on my experience. I was a professional photographer and a liaison with the Professional Photographers of America, where we worked with people who were trying to become certified professional photographers and helped evaluate their images, helped to look at their various things so that they could reach a competency level. And so I said, we should bring that to our club, to our organization. And I started paying attention, and I noticed we had two distinct groups of members: those who attended our general membership meeting, where we might talk about simple things or things that were way over my head as a beginner. And then we had people who visited our dark sky site. We have an excellent state-of-the-art dark sky site in the Southern California desert, but the two groups didn't really seem to mix that much. And so I started gravitating more towards the people at the dark sky site, again, being a new member and not knowing a lot about astronomy in general. But I thought there has to be a way to increase this cohesion between the two groups. And, so I wanted to figure out a forum where we could learn and share our knowledge and kind of overcome some of the challenges of getting started and learn from people who have a lot more experience. And lastly, I was really interested in camaraderie. I mean, after all, that's why we all join a group. We all want to be part of a group of people with similar shared interests and likes. And so I decided, why not take the effort and do a little bit of work myself and launch an astro imaging group. So again, we launched our astro imaging group in March of last year, and we have our meetings once a month via Zoom. And we do a general meeting at the full moon. And so following that general membership meeting on Tuesdays is when we do our astro imaging group. Tuesdays is probably the most common group among the people who are interested, but it presents some challenges. Some people work, some people have other, bowling club, do whatever they do. So we can't solve every issue, but we decided upon Tuesdays and decided that the club, we could have many more members, but we wanted it to be open only to Riverside Astronomical Club members. And I think doing it that way helps us control who's a part of the group and not getting off in the weeds. I mean, after all, we're trying to develop friendships that we can meet at our general membership meeting, meet out at our dark sky site. And if somebody's calling in from Schenectady, New York, or somewhere like that, may learn a great deal from him, but it doesn't really fit with what my vision was anyway. So a typical meeting, we might discuss a challenge image that we've presented to the members. And the challenge image could be something from an open star cluster, a nebula, a mosaic, anything like that. But typically we'll decide upon a challenge image. And then once that challenge image is taken, when we get together for our virtual meeting, we go through and look at the challenges and the successes that our members who participated have, and talk about various experiences we had in trying to do it. And we all kind of learn from that. It's really a great interactive forum. Other things that we do is technical support. Someone might have an issue with, geez, I wanted to do the challenge, I just couldn't get the star color right, or I couldn't get this right, or my telescope, I point it north and it goes south. And so it's a great opportunity with a group of people to interact and troubleshoot. And some of the meetings we had, some of my favorite ones are where we sit there and spend a few minutes of time and actually kind of delve in depth and figure out why the stars aren't round, or why the color isn't there, or various other things. The other thing we do during our meetings is choose our challenge image for the next month, something that we can work on. And that turns out to be kind of subjective, of course. And I always weigh, when we discuss challenge images, some of them, like 2 months ago we did a mosaic image, which was interesting. Everyone had either not done a mosaic image or were very limited in their experience with mosaic images. And we all walked away from it knowing that while a mosaic image is really cool and it was a great opportunity to learn it, it took an awful lot of time to put together all the panels, given the various focal lengths of our telescopes and things like that. But I want to make sure that when we do an image challenge, we don't occupy so much time that a person can't work on their own personal pursuits and things like that. So I'm really anxious to learn how other people operate their clubs and what the astroimaging groups and other clubs do. And our meetings, logistically, they last roughly 2 hours. And I think that's, by that time, we're all ready to move on and do something else. But that's just generically, I plan for an hour, but somehow it seems to go about 2. So some of the questions that I think might come up is how would you, how do you handle the various skill levels? And we have that same issue in our club. We have people who just retired and just bought a telescope and they've got a DSLR and somehow figured out how to put the 2 pieces together, but that's about the extent of their knowledge. We have other people who maybe have been imaging for 10 years or more, and you can't appeal to both interest levels. You can't spend all of your time on the entry level guy and expect to keep the interest of the guy who's been imaging for 10 years, and you can't blow away the guy that just got started with technical terms that he's never even heard of and things that seem so far out of reach that he would never even think of those. So a couple of months after we got started, and it was apparent that we had this disparate group of imagers, I thought, what better way to A, create some interest in growing our group, B, create some camaraderie and bring everyone up to at least a baseline standard or a level playing field, so that even though they may not be an experienced imager, they're an imager who can get a picture, and then from that point we can help them process it and learn the various skills that they may need. So we created an astrophotography boot camp at our dark sky site, and in that boot camp we covered what an astro imaging rib setup looks like, how you basically use Nina and PhD and a few other kinds of things. And we used it as a promotion to stir activity within our club in general. And, I think all clubs go through experience of, some highs and lows, a little bit of lag and interest level, but, this was an attempt to solve a couple of problems. Again, bring the imagers who are just starting out up to at least a baseline standard, and while at the same time giving those who have some experience a chance to mentor and help coach some of the people learning astrophotography. And another question that comes up, how do you find new members and how do you keep them engaged? And again, we have an excellent dark sky site at our Southern California desert. And so we came up, in addition to our astro imaging boot camp, one of our members suggested that we have a swap meet. So we built in a swap meet to that afternoon, and we do our monthly imaging challenges. And then I said, hey, that's great. We got a little bit of activity rolling. What can we do as a club to involve people who aren't necessarily astro imagers, but maybe want to participate? So we set up an observatory tour at Palomar Observatory, and then we kind of hit them with End of Summer Star Party and Luau, all again designed just to keep our name in front of them, keep them motivated and coming to our dark sky site or being more engaged with the club, because the more members that are engaged with the club, the more likelihood that they're going to join our astro imaging group. And having said that, we have a lot of room to grow. Again, we're only a few months old, and some of the areas that I think we're facing growing pains with and would benefit from would be a forum where we could share our images and commentaries outside of our actual group. It's important to understand a lot of people don't like social media for a whole host of reasons, and we're currently investigating how we might change our astronomy club's website to accommodate something because it's come up from members, you know, hey, I want to try this piece of equipment or this filter. Does someone have some experience with that? And that's exactly what we want. That's what my vision for this astro imaging group was, where we could all share common knowledge, or somebody has a similar piece of equipment or similar experience. But we need to figure out, and I'm hoping I can learn from our other astro imaging clubs presenting tonight, what forums they use. How do they come over and share those types of activities or questions, images, so forth. The other challenge that we're faced with is we need our members of our group, our little individual group, to be more active and volunteer and say, hey, you know, I understand whatever process in PixInsight, or let me talk about stretching, or let me talk about color calibration, or something like that. That would go a long way. Right now, it's mostly me trying to come up with a theme, but I'm only one person. I can only do so much. So more member involvement would certainly grow our club members' knowledge, and in addition to that, might stimulate other people to want to participate. I think that I need to be more active myself, maybe post something in our club's newsletter saying, hey, if you know anything about this and want to share with our group, that might be beneficial or helpful. And the other thing is, it'd be awesome if we could have enough membership to support going outside of our club and bringing in outside presentations. Again, I'm kind of leery to do it at the moment because we don't have the membership needed, but I'm hoping to grow our astro imaging group to a point where we can get members from other clubs and other presenters who have something to offer to come in and give a brief Zoom presentation. Another area that I've identified that we should grow is trying to coordinate our lesson to support our astro imaging challenge. So, for example, a challenge, again, I mentioned a couple of months ago, was the mosaic. And many of our members, or almost everybody, hadn't done a mosaic, or if they did, it was a long time ago and they didn't remember what they did, and so on and so forth. But if we had a presentation that talked about mosaics, the capture, the overlap necessary, how you put it together, so on and so forth. And then we said, okay, now that we've heard how to do a mosaic and how to process it, that's our challenge this month. I think would have made it easier for everyone. And I think it would have been kind of the nail down needed to reinforce the lesson.
Hi, Mark.
Yes, sir.
We have a question coming in, and I know this question is going to apply to the other people too. Maybe it'd be good if some of the other people gave a presentation here for a while and tell us what's happening in their groups.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay.
Mark,
Okay.
thank you so much for sharing about your group. And I heard two things that were themes for me. One is building the camaraderie and the collaboration in your group, and building everybody's skills and doing that by mentoring. I think that's really fabulous. I appreciate really what you've done in California. We should talk about Boston and California getting together and deal with the time change. Kevin will get on board with that. So our next presenter is
Well, I have a couple more things, if I could.
okay, real quick.
Are we out of time?
Yeah, we are. Yep.
Oh, okay, just real quickly. I think some other areas we could grow is showcasing some group activities to attract new members, recognizing members of the group via like image of the month or something that we put at our general membership meeting, more hands-on workshops, and then collaboration with other astro imaging groups, like you mentioned, Boston. And our success is we're sharing data now amongst some of our participants. And here's an example. And on the right, here's an example of a thread where we talk about what we need to do in order to solve some technical problems. And I just want to finish by saying, you don't really even have to belong to a club. Just find other people who share your interest and passion and start communication. think about what your group is for, develop a short-term and long-term plan so that you have a focus, and be consistent. A group can be only 2 people, and you don't have to be the expert. Learn as much as you can from other members, but have fun. And thank you for time. And that's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate all you've done, and I'm inspired by what you've done with that group and your background in professional photography.
Awesome.
I'd like to continue the conversation with our 2 groups when we get going. Tommy,
Awesome.
Thank you very much for joining us. You are at the Denver Astronomical Society. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All righty. So, so Tommy, why don't you go ahead and share with us what your group does?
All right, will do. All right, so as Marcia stated, I am from the Denver Astronomical Society, and I am a co-lead of the ASIG, or Astrophotography Special Interest Group. How did we get started? Well, DAS was started in 1949, so we just celebrated our 75th anniversary. DAS in general has over 1,000 members, and ASIG has over 260 members and counting. The Special Interest Group was originally created by Joe Pineda and Greg Fogarty. They created it due to an increasing interest from the DAS group members on imaging the night sky. It all started, during COVID, when the Astro imaging, started blazing, and everyone wanted to get a telescope and start taking pictures. So I joined not too long after and took Joe's place, and he's actually the lead for the Maker SIG, where they work on building telescope parts, 3D printing, and whatnot. So pretty cool stuff that Joe's doing there. And where do we get the group members from? So our group members primarily come from DAS. They must be a member of DAS prior to signing up for ASIG. DAS has a newsletter sent out a few times a month, and ASIG is advertised in this newsletter, which brings a lot of new members. DAS members just need to send us an email to our ASIG email, where either myself or Greg, the co-lead, will respond to and add them into a spreadsheet, basically a database. And that way, once we send out an email down the road, with our Zoom meetings, they'll be on the email spreadsheet. So, yeah, and due to the size of DAS and word of mouth about the club, we get a lot of random requests from non-DAS members, and unfortunately, we have to tell them they need to be a DAS member prior to joining ASIG. So next up, what are the logistics of the group? So as I stated earlier, we have 2 ASIG leads, myself and Greg Fogarty, who run the meetings, and then we also have a third lead. He just joined up as a presenter. His name is Charlie Hagan, who runs another meeting. So we actually we went from 2 meetings a month to now 3 meetings a month. They're all done via Zoom. So the first meeting is hosted by Greg, and this is just a general meeting where we discuss imaging programs, night sky targets, member gallery images, which is that's a big part of it, where we just encourage everyone to share their images from beginners to experts, and beginners can have their images critiqued or ask questions on how they can improve and so forth. So, and then we also just have a general roundtable. And then I host the second meeting of the month, which is a beginner, intermediate, post-processing and acquisition equipment issues. I also process images from other members that might be having some troubles. I have them, pull up PixInsight and just tag along. And if they have questions about a process that I did, I just, answer the questions in real time. The third meeting is hosted by Charlie Hagan, and this is geared towards advanced post-processing in PixInsight. So this is going to be more, new processes that come out, a lot of heavy pixel math equations and so forth. So the biggest challenge we face keeping all the members engaged, challenge we face is keeping all the members engaged. With over 260 members, there are a lot of different types of skill levels, equipment types, etc. So it's hard to hit on all the different interests. Another challenge we face is the number of meetings we have each month. So we're considering going back down to 2 because 3 a month is getting a bit overwhelming. So, yeah. And then how do we keep members interested? We try to introduce new topics when we think things are getting a bit stale, such as talk about new gear like the new smart telescopes that are flooding the market. And recently I picked up a Daystar Quark and started doing some solar imaging, and also talk about planetary imaging because not everyone's just imaging deep space like DSOs. So we try to keep the topics fresh and everyone engaged. We also host in-person meetings at our dark sky locations to help people in person with their equipment. I feel like helping people in person is a good way to keep their frustrations low and their excitement high when it comes to astrophotography. There's just a big learning curve, and I think having Zoom meetings is good, but it can only get you so far when you're talking about gear and how do all these programs talk to each other. So the in-person meetings definitely help. So another thing to keep people interested is we have an Astro imaging program. It's a guided course on imaging specific targets in the night sky. So this helps beginners become more familiar with the night sky, and it's also led by a mentor who assists with gear and post-processing. So, and they actually get a certificate at the end of the program, which is pretty cool. So how to increase group membership? The main key for ASIG to increase membership is having a good initial member base, such as DAS helps. With 1,000 members, 1,000 plus members, we get a lot of people that, may want to switch from visual to photography. And advertising via email, social media, and word of mouth really helps increase membership. DAS and ASIG, we have a Slack channel that allows members to share images, discuss various topics, and includes a classified section. So if anyone's trying to sell some gear or, it keeps the interest up on the group with that Slack channel. And what does success look like? I see success as how many people show up for the meetings versus just how many people have signed up for ASIG. We've got over 260 members that are a part of ASIG, but not every one of them, attends our meetings each month. We could have 10 members show up to a meeting. We could have 30 members. So it's just trying to encourage everyone to get engaged in the content. When we have our Zoom meetings, whenever we feel like the meeting is getting stale, as hosts, we try to engage with the members, try to wake them up a little bit. And then how can we get members to contribute, share in the effort? We encourage members to share their images in the gallery, like I spoke about earlier. Share their image stacks to be processed in our second and third meetings, and also share their stories on how they got into astrophotography. This really helps other new beginners get inspired to start imaging the night sky. And we are at Q&A.
Tommy, thanks a lot. Wow, 1,000 members, and then you have almost a quarter of your membership, more than a quarter of your membership signed up for the SIG. That's remarkable.
Yeah, it's going great.
Yeah, I'm impressed too with the number of meetings you have, and each meeting, it seems like, has its own objective and perhaps its own sort of mini target audience. That's great. And the astro imaging course sounds fabulous. You guys are really, I'm impressed with all you're doing. I'm wondering, do you have any questions for Tommy, or should we move
Well,
on?
there weren't any specific questions, but there was a question earlier, and it probably applies to all the people that are presenting tonight.
Yeah,
From
I think it's-
Astro, Dave, how do you address the group setting different setups, software acquisitions, processing, ASI, Air, NIDA, SGP,
Yeah.
Photoshop,
So-
PixInsight?
I think
That is kind of the universal question I think
Yeah,
we all have for groups.
I can kind of help on that.
Guys, before we go there, we've got 4 presentations to give, and we might be running late if we don't get to it. And I think that question is one of the common questions we knew would be coming. So we're going to answer that towards the end if we could. Okay.
Okay.
So
Tom-
Marcia, you want to bring up your third speaker?
Sure. So our next speaker is Kevin Quinn from Northern Virginia Astronomy, the Northern Virginia Astronomy Club, otherwise known as NOVAC. That's how I know them. Kevin, I don't know you, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do. I know Gowrie and Linda and some others from that group. So Kevin.
Right.
Quinn, Kevin
for
Quinn.
having
I've got 2 Kevins. The next presenter is also Kevin. Thanks, Kevin.
We'll try not to get ourselves mixed up anyway.
Good. Don't get me mixed up. That's the important part.
Thanks for having me. So this is kind of neat. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do in our group. We are the Northern Virginia Astronomy Club. We were founded here in Northern Virginia about, I don't know, I guess about 40 years ago. My understanding is that it was started out as a high school astronomy club. And it kind of just grew and grew from there. And some of the original members from that high school are still with us now and then. But we've got about 1,000 members now. The rumor is that we're the largest astronomy club in the country, but it sounds like probably there are a lot of people who make that claim. So to talk about our imaging group, back in 2011, one of our members, Greg Pipal, who is very big into solar imaging, set up this thing called the Mid-Atlantic Astrophotography Workshop. It was a day-long thing that was at George Mason University and had, I think it had 130 participants. This was back when
Kevin, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Are you presenting a PowerPoint?
I'm trying to. Does that mean no? I'm not presenting a
Then let me
PowerPoint?
stop you. Let's get back to sharing. Okay.
Yeah,
Go to
I got
your
ahead of myself here.
go to your meeting screen, and then down at the very bottom you'll see the square with the upwards arrows.
How we doing? Is that
Okay,
better?
here you come.
Okay.
And
All right,
start,
next time I'll remember to present the button. So you guys can see that I'm good at talking, but it's when it comes to technology,
okay.
not so good.
We were listening to you, and we knew that you had more going on.
Well,
So go ahead and start your presentation.
Which gets into part of the reason that we set up our group, because astrophotography is hard. So please tell me you can see the presentation now.
We can. Well, you're on your planning screen rather than your presentation part of the screen. So just tell it to start presenting. You know what I mean?
Thought I just did.
Upper left hand, however you tell it to start presenting.
Any better?
You can also just hit F5.
How about now?
Did you share your entire screen when you shared?
Yeah, no, that's what I failed to do. Okay,
Yeah.
hold on.
Well,
let me go back.
You can go from there, okay, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, but I think we've encountered this before, that if you're using, through our own experiences with doing these presentations, that I'm using Firefox, and I think our experience has been that unless we share the entire screen, it often doesn't work.
I mean, that's going to be true for any browser. It's just the fact that you're sharing PowerPoint, the application, not the
There we go.
presentation view.
Any better now?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, technology challenges. Anyway, so we got started back in 2011 with the Mid-Atlantic Astrophotography Workshop. It was awesome. It was a huge amount of work. We were kind of trying to replicate what you saw at the Advanced Imaging Conference or NIAC. down here in Washington. We said, hey, we can pull this off. And we did. And Greg did an awesome job. But, as you can imagine, it was a huge amount of work. So we sort of went through this phase of, for the next couple of years after that, of sort of wishing that someone would repeat it. There were posts on our the Novak Club email list where people would say, wouldn't it be great if someone would repeat the Mid-Atlantic Astrophotography Workshop? And of course, this is in the same mode that your 7-year-old might say, wouldn't it be great if I had a pony? And of course, it would be great, except for everyone who has to take care of the pony. And so for the next couple of years, we sort of spent some time casting about for these low stress ideas for how can we do something to meet this interest without having to take care of the pony, right? And so the answer was, let's turn the pony into a goldfish. I finally said, after a couple of years of this, I finally said, look, how about if we just get a bunch of us together in a room and we process our images? No presentations, no stress, no starting time. Well, no official starting time that you had to be there by, no official leaving time that you had to stay there until, no presentations, no agenda. Just come, bring your laptop, bring your images. We'll work on images together. And so like the parents in the crowd probably recognize what we're talking about here as parallel play, right? But it worked really well because there was not a lot of big barriers to preventing this from going. And so in July 2014, we had our first meeting. The Byron Berger Imaging Group was born, and we met at a local library. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the way we've changed over the years, because compared to the two clubs that you just heard from, we've been around for about 10 years. In fact, we just had our 10th anniversary meeting a couple of months ago. So I can give you some idea of things that have changed over time. We started out with this idea of processing parties. That's what we called them, a processing party, because we didn't want to say a meeting. We were not having meetings. That's what our big club did. We had processing parties. And we just sat together in a room, crunched images, talked about what we did, exchanged ideas. Occasionally, we had a spontaneous demonstration. Two people sitting in the corner would be like, hey, maybe it would be useful to share this with the group. And so people would do that. Over time, that sort of attendance tapered off, right? Because the people had done that and they had seen what they needed to see. And so we started to do a little bit more formal things. We started off by having processing walkthroughs. Like one of the members of Novak, one of the astrophotographers that was a member of our group, would sit, just plug their computer into a projector and show us how they processed an image. Walk through it on Deep Sky Stacker or PixInsight or Photoshop, whatever it was they were using at the time. Over time, we have started doing more formal presentations. That is kind of due to the next subject, which how our locations changed over time. We started out at local libraries, and that's where our very first meeting was in the summer of 2014. I just booked a room at one of the local libraries and said, everybody show up here at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. And that's what we did. The problem is that the library rooms were and are first come, first served. And so at midnight, 60 days before meeting date, I would be sitting there with my finger poised on the key of the computer to reserve the room. And I discovered that while all groups were created equal, some groups were more equal than others, like an animal farm, because some people, when the calendar would pop up, some of those groups would already have the reservations. So as a result, we got bounced around from library to library trying to find places to be. And so every couple of months, we'd be in a different location. We finally got a community center, which was a stable location, about, 6 years ago, I guess. 7 years ago, I guess now. Everything dates to COVID in my head. That was definitely better. Having one location to go to was really nice. Part of the problem we had there was equipment was not always reliable. Sometimes we needed a web connection. That wasn't always good through their Wi-Fi. They had projectors, which were nice when they worked, but didn't always. So then COVID, right? So 4 years ago, we were getting ready to do our most recent meeting, and the world imploded, and so we went online. The nice thing was Novak already had a Google subscription for whatever it was they needed to do. And we were able to free ride on that to start putting our meetings online through Google Meet. The advantage that that gave us, we could have continued with our format of having club members do presentations and do processing walkthroughs. The huge advantage it gave us was now we were able to have people from all around the world do presentations for us. So we had Adam Block, Chris Woodhouse, Peter Goodhue, both of them from the UK, Charlie Bracken from Pennsylvania, Gary M from Texas. We've had people from all over the country and all over the world do presentations for us, which is really nice. That is talking about one of the ways to increase participation in your meetings. Have a name like Adam Block to be able to say, yeah, our next meeting will be presented by Adam Block. The other advantage of being online is it freed us from the limited hardware we could get at the meeting locations, the physical meeting locations, because the presenters now could use their own, powerful processing PCs rather than having to use their laptops. Everybody just give me a hello, just so I can make sure that I still have you on the line.
You're good here. I hear you.
Okay, that's good. The only reason I said that is because technology, I am looking at my PowerPoint presentation rather than all your smiling faces at me. So it's good to know that at least one person is still with me. So our current format is that we meet online about once every other month. We usually meet on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. And we can go 2 to 3 hours long, depending on how long the presenter wants to go, basically. We still use Google Meet. We usually start off, the first 20, 30 minutes, sometimes the last 20, 30 minutes, just depends on who's presenting for us that day. We do a show and tell of recent group member images. Then the presenter takes over for the remaining time. Two other really huge things that we have that are really beneficial are we have a group chat on Google Chat that we've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years, pretty much as long as we've been online. And that's really helpful because you can get, not only you can get support, a lot of times you can get real-time support. You're sitting at your telescope trying to take pictures and something's going wrong. You can go onto the chat and say, hey, anybody got any ideas? I've done that more than once. Another thing that's really helpful is that Linda Thomas Fowler set up for us a group page on Astrobin a few years ago where we can publish our images. So it's really nice to have a group page because that way, we can go online and see, hey, so-and-so published this. That looks pretty good. We can talk about that at our next meeting. Just last couple points, just had our 10th anniversary meeting, and we had the Space Telescope Science Institute bring on people, Alyssa Pagan and Joe T. Pasquale, who right now at least are the principal people who process those beautiful images that we see from James Webb and Hubble. And we compared, our organizer for that meeting asked everybody to contribute their astrophotography baby pictures. In other words, that very first picture that you took the very first time you attached a camera to your telescope, and compare those to the Hubble and James Webb images. So that was a fun meeting. So last couple of things, lessons learned, rotate the coordinator duties to get fresh ideas and inspiration and energy. I was the coordinator for 10 years. And it's mostly because I was the one who said, hey, why don't we do this? Back 10 years ago when people were trying to figure out what to do. And just for the anniversary meeting, I turned over the reins to a new person who immediately came up with new ideas, which was great. We've discovered that presentations, as I mentioned earlier, especially the big name guest speakers, definitely get more participation. Finally, the two other things that I mentioned, having the group chat, we're migrating, by the way, to Discord, but having some sort of live or semi-live support system set up was super helpful, especially for the new imagers. But even for people like me who have been imaging for ages, there's always new software and new hardware to learn, and I go on there and I get help. Also, the Astrobin page. If you don't use Astrobin, having some place for your group to post their images so that other people can see them, really been helpful. The one thing that I'll throw out that we're missing that I think both the other imaging groups talked about was physical locations, especially a place for beginning imagers to come and, hey, I can set up my telescope here with a dozen other people, and there will be experienced imagers standing there next to us, helping us figure out what we're doing. That is the one thing that we really would like to do. But again, it goes back to that idea of, who's going to set this up, who's going to manage it, who's going to make it happen. Because physical meetings are harder to make happen, but that is something that I really like to do. Last slide, why an imaging SIG? Obviously, because imaging is hard, right? When I started doing this, the first couple of presentations that I did to the group, I said my goal in setting up the SIG and in doing any presentation was so that other people would get into astrophotography and they would learn and they would get better than me, and they would be able to come back and tell me what I was doing wrong. And that is exactly what has happened. There have been like Linda and Gowrie and Juan and Chris Kagi, people that you've probably seen at TAIC before at the meetings. All of them started out during the time that we've been doing this, and they are all just brilliant imagers. Those are the people that I'm typically turning to when I say, hey, Nina isn't working for me tonight. What am I doing wrong here? They'll be able to say, oh yeah, well, we helped develop some of the software for that, so we can answer your question for you. Last 2 points, learning new techniques from each other. Obviously, what I'm talking about right there. And finally, outreach. I think we all know that, especially once we started seeing Hubble images back in the 90s, there's nothing like a picture that engages the public in astronomy. So I will stop there and let Marcia take over, and we can move on to the next presenter.
Thanks so much, Kevin. That was fabulous. I heard a couple things. I heard you talk about supporting your group, supporting individual people and getting them along even step by step, but then reaching far and getting speakers like Adam Block and Peter Goodhue. And I know you've had Dylan on as well. That's actually how I found you guys, was the talks you have that are even archived, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is a fabulous thing to do. You didn't mention that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kevin, so very much. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Yeah, good. And our last speaker tonight is Kevin Boucher, who is from the Aldrich Astronomical Society. And it was the first Astro photography group that I joined. So I'm grateful for Kevin and what he's done. And he'll tell us about Aldrich. Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Marcia. Let me set up my presentation here. All right. Can everybody see the first slide?
Yep, looks good.
All right, great. All right, so I'm with Aldrich Astronomical Society. We are a much smaller club than either Novak or the Denver Astronomical Society. But we are one of the oldest astronomy clubs in the nation. We were established in 1932. We're pretty much based in central Massachusetts. That's our regional area that we pretty much, drag in members from. We're big on promoting education in astronomy and astrophotography to some extent. We do well over 100 outreach events each year in schools, libraries, scouting facilities, that kind of thing. We steward a regional Adopt a Library telescope program where we placed already close to 200 telescopes in about 178 libraries where people can, take them out as library books, type of thing, We currently average in our club between 170 and 200 members annually, but we have grown membership by quite a bit over the last 10 years. Of those members, I'd say roughly half are interested in astrophotography. Not all of them are active like everybody else has discussed, but we have a core, like everybody seems to have. We do own a 4-acre, roughly Bortle 5 observatory site with a roll-off roof observatory and a telescope storage building and a utility shed and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to check us out, that's our URL there. So in terms of the observatory site, we do utilize that for astrophotography. We basically have a star party every month, except for during the winter. And we have a very large field. So, it's almost 4 to 5 acre, nicely mowed field with a lot of concrete pads and that kind of thing. So people can pretty much set up their rigs, everywhere. In fact, last night we had one, and we had probably, I would guess, somewhere around 15 astrophotography rigs out there. I've never seen that many in my, since I've been a member of the club. So it was nice to see where people set up all over the place. So that's who we are. So the key mission for our subgroup is really to promote learning of new and established astrophotography techniques and tools, whether for image acquisition, using like Nina or something like that, or for post-processing with PixInsight or GIMP or Photoshop or whatever, especially between mentors, being our more experienced people, and beginners, with the goal being that everybody gets better, with their images in the end. That's really the goal for our subgroup. We also used to meet in person. I started I was the founder of the astrophotography subgroup in our club, and I think it started in about 2008. I'm not 100% certain. And it was really a very small beginning, and we really met in person, primarily at a college, Anna Maria College, which is a college in central Massachusetts. We met in a separate room from the rest of the members, and that kind of migrated into, meeting in people's homes. We moved that around. We've met in restaurants. We met at public facilities. A lot of the things that some of the other club members have done, the other clubs in this talk have done. But we have really gravitated exclusively to Zoom now once COVID hit. That's really how even our regular club meetings were basically being performed at that time. So we try to have a meeting at least once a month. That doesn't always happen. Topics recommended by the group based on greatest needs. So we poll group members, what are you interested in? What do you feel your biggest need is now that you want to learn? And then we try to find probably the best member in our group to teach it, basically. We try to have topics that address the needs of both advanced and beginner users, which is a common problem. And that's really an important focus. You can't, it may be that everybody wants to learn some of the most advanced PixInsight things, but we really want to try dragging in those beginners. And that really accounts for probably the vast majority of our group. We generally send invites out via email. That's how we communicate with our membership. And every time we onboard a new member, it's pretty much done through a software system that we have. It's on the cloud type of thing. That's for groups like ours. And when we onboard members, we ask them what their interest areas are. And one of those is astrophotography. So that's how we know who's interested in what. And that's how we target those particular members with the astrophotography related emails, you might say. Every meeting that we have where we're teaching something, we record it. So we're recording these Zoom meetings, and we have a video repository of all these astrophotography past training sessions so that members can watch them anytime. And that's proved really, really helpful for a lot of our members, because a lot of times they may not make the meeting night, so they can watch this anytime. But even more important, especially with this type of topic, as you say, it's very complicated. What happens is people will watch these videos over and over and over again to actually really get a grasp of maybe a technique, whether it's image acquisition or image processing of some sort, So that's kind of one way we tackle that. We also have an astrophotography forum. I happen to be the IT guy, the webmaster, you may say, for our club. So one of the things I did is, originally it started out to be a way for members to communicate with each other without sharing personal information like phone numbers and their own email addresses. So I actually, our website is entirely, written by me, and basically the forum that I'm using is just software plugin that I'm using, and it works perfectly great. It allows us to share recent photos and make comments on them. Members can ask questions, specific questions to a problem they are currently working through. You can make arrangements to meet with other members at the observatory site for an imaging session or somewhere else for that matter. And like I said, it's a way for members to communicate without sharing personal contact information unless they choose to do that. We have a lot of different silos in that forum. We have some related to the observatory. We have some related to just general questions. But all these forums can be subscribed to. And so people, if you're into astrophotography, you can subscribe to that forum, and emails will get pushed to you whenever any forum content goes in, like someone posts a new picture or something. So it's worked out really, really well. And as I think Kevin suggested in Novak, that, you know, it's helpful for people to work through problems when they're actually working through the problem, you know, so it's proven very useful. One of the things that we like to do is we really love to promote, you know, success in any of our photos. On our main homepage, we have a section where what we call latest from our astrophotography group. We try to keep no more than like 7 to 8 pictures there at any given time. But it's a way to promote, you know, some of the pictures that our members are making to the general public, you know, not just for our own members, because our forums, all that video content that I talked about is behind our membership wall. You know, it's an incentive to be a member, basically, to have a lot of that material that only members can get to. But this is an area where anybody is going to see this. And it's also worked to be very big benefit for us to get new people to join, because they're seeing a lot of these beautiful pictures show up on our homepage, and it gives an incentive for somebody to join the club, specifically to be mentored in astrophotography. So this is just a revolving area. And you can see we have people, you know, using sea stars, you know, brand new users that make very beautiful pictures with these, you know, with these entirely automated scopes, and of course some more advanced stuff. So the other thing that we like to do, and this has proven also very, very popular, and we originally did this as a way to really another outreach method. You know, we do, as I said, a lot of outreach, but we really try to do outreach in the form of astrophotography exhibits in local galleries and library settings, a lot of different types, you know, both public and private galleries, things like that. So that's proven really popular. And what's cool, it's fun for our membership also, because you're really trying to get a picture that you'd be proud to put in a gallery setting like this. So it gives an impetus for our membership to get better and better pictures. So, and it's also, once again, as I said, it's actually brought a lot of new members in, because we do it in a not so veiled attempt where we really publicize our club as part of this event. And typically what we always do is we have an astrophotography related lecture involved. So most of these facilities have areas where we can set up, you know, and do some kind of a PowerPoint presentation on astrophotography, or maybe even astronomy, you know, in general, and just to promote, you know, the club in itself. So, and that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I appreciate all you do. So what questions do we have for these guys?
The biggest question that we've had so far came from Doug early on, and it's something that needs to be addressed. You've got a group of people that you're working with, and some of you have spoken to this a little bit. So could I ask the panelists, how do you address in a given group the fact that everybody's doing something different? Some are using ASI airs, and some are using Ninas, some are using SGP. Somebody's using Cyril or Affinity or Photoshop, PixInsight. They're all doing different things. So what do you do with that? How do you work with it?
Well, I can speak to what we do, Alex. Specifically, we've had ASI air people that use ASI air all the time and actually do a presentation, because you know, we saw ASI air is one of the things that was becoming more and more popular. So you said it yourself. Whenever we poll our members, we find out, okay, I use ASI air. I'm not sure how other people do. So we make an ASI air topic. We poll people, what are you using for acquisition software? We pick the ones that are probably the most used, and then we talk about that topic, like obviously some of the popular acquisition softwares that, you know, that are out there now. So polling our membership is how we bring in the new topics. We haven't done a lot on the actual hardware, I guess. it's been more on software, if I had to say, at least in our group. We've talked about, things like guiding, of course, but once again, I see that as more software than hardware, although hardware is a very big component of it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we handle it. So,
Okay. Does anybody else have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can say for our group, we have this sort of similar split between software and hardware. And software wise, we tend to be very PixInsight centric. And I think that that's common among most of the members of our group. So that isn't so much the challenge, but hardware, it's there's a forest of hardware out there. But because our group has a fair number of experienced imagers, chances are that somebody is if not using your hardware right now, they have used your hardware in the past. So there's somebody around who can answer those kind of questions. That's where the chat group gets to be super helpful.
yeah, I agree, Kevin. Yeah.
I think from our standpoint, we tried to address that. We focus primarily on image processing with PixInsight, not because that's our only thing, but that's just what our members are doing at the moment. But we tried to address that by holding our boot camp, where we took the new members and tried to at least get them to a point where they could start moving something with free software like Nina and PhD guiding. And then, of course, you get into PixInsight. But I'm a firm believer that as you grow in this, you really need to learn whatever the current industry standard programs are, much like if you're a photographer, you're going to use Lightroom and Photoshop. It's just the way it is. And C-Star and things like that can produce beautiful images, but they almost do all the work for you. So I think addressing that specific level of user right up front may encourage them to go on and acquire PixInsight or some other system.
Jacob points out that for those of you who have forums for AP SIGs, specifically those who have forums open to viewing to the wider public, he just wanted to say thank you, that he can, I think, look at your SIG groups, your special interest groups. So as I got it, Riverside is pretty much for the members. I don't think anybody says members only, but it caters to the members. What about the other three?
Our group is just for our members. Yeah.
Tommy?
Yeah, same for us.
So for our group, we are open to anybody, but I will say that not a lot of people from outside have contacted us and said, hey, we want to join and sit in on your meetings.
Okay. How would I know about joining your group if I weren't in your group? Besides coming to the astroimaging channel and seeing.
Yeah, so well, we haven't done a whole lot of outreach. That's what I was interested in, some of the things that the other clubs were saying. We haven't really gone out of our way to pull in members from outside of Novak. Kind of the way, for the few people that have joined us, the way it's happened is I will see somebody, especially in the days before we went online, I would see somebody, well, I would hunt somebody down, right? Mostly because I wanted them to do a presentation for us at one point, right? And a lot of people kind of fly under the radar. Either they don't post their images and they are members of our local club, in which case I would hunt them down. Or they are local people who I saw post good images, but they weren't actually in our club. But those people I could reach out to and say, hey, why don't you come in and join us and do a presentation for us? So we did have people who weren't part of our club, but it was mostly because I had reached out to them and said, hey, do a presentation for us. If you're not ready to do a presentation, just come and sit in on our online meetings.
Okay, I wanted to say something about special interest groups. And one of the reasons I asked the rest of you guys to come in here and talk about it a little bit is because I have noticed in my years of imaging that there's a lot of ways to learn about imaging. You can go to Cloudy Nights and ask questions there. You can watch a lot of YouTube stuff, but you can't interact very well. And when I go watch an Adam Block tutorial, or when I watch him on on one of his tutorials. But they're excellent. Warren, Ron Brecher, all these guys are really good. The TAIC is good, and you can ask questions over here in the chat. But when I'm in the special interest group with Mark and the guys in the club, we're actually putting our pictures up there, and people are saying, "Hey, what's that?" And I go, "I don't know, I didn't see that," or stuff like that. You know what I mean? And particularly with Mark's side, since he was a professional photographer, and this is something that professional photographers do on a regular basis, is they critique each other's works in a helpful manner. Mark could do that with us, and he could say, "Hey, what are you doing with that? Why is that still there?" And I realized, oh, there are things that people can see that I can't see. And yet this is my small group. I've got 8, 12 guys here, and they're all guys, unfortunately, and we know to look at it. It helps inspire me to try to be better at it. And working in small groups like that over the internet, where I can actually hear people and I can interrupt them and say, "Wait a minute, you can't do that." I can't do that at the Advanced Imaging Conference with 40 people in the room, but I can do that when I'm in a little chat group with a bunch of people on Google Meets or Zoom. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have a show like this. Let other people know that you could do something like this. So there.
No doubt about it, Alec. That's the best way for someone to learn who's coming new into the hobby, is to join an astronomy club and work one-on-one with somebody. Or I work one-on-one with a lot of different people over the years. So I've worked one-on-one with Marcia. Marcia's worked one-on-one with me, so we help each other. That's the beauty of working with a lot of your peers, so.
Yeah, when I started, I did not really know about the Denver Astronomical Society, so I had to learn the hard way, YouTube and forums, and just kind of build yourself up that way. I really wish there was some kind of astrophotography group back when I started, so definitely.
And I think too, you don't necessarily not everyone has access to an astrophotography club, but if you can find people who have similar interests that you are using similar equipment or whatever, you can form your own group of 3 or 4 guys, even if you just Zoom or chat or something like that. But I would say that astrophotography has changed dramatically over the last several years. There's scripts, there's other things that simplify the process, and you might be brand new to astrophotography and going down YouTube videos and seeing things that may have been the greatest technique 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a year ago, but they're so much more cumbersome now. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 different dynamic background extraction type of tools, and so I think being part of a group will help you stay current with what's moving in the industry at the time.
Well, one of the things that Chris has pointed out in answer to the question of if people are using different software products or something to either acquire or to process, there are certain concepts, he points out, that are common to all software, common to whatever you're doing, whether you're using this program or that program. And you can go over those things and get everybody up to speed on those things, and then getting them to move to a different product or something is not nearly as difficult. Okay, we're getting near the end. I want to ask Marcia, is there anything else you want to summarize? I'm going to ask each of you guys, and then we're going to kind of call it quits for the evening. So Marcia, let's start with you.
I'm grateful.
And you're a guy tonight, okay? I mean, I know you're a girl, but we had this argument before. We've had this argument.
What a nice
guy. Girls can be guys and say, "Hey guys, let's go do something."
Hey friends, right? Yeah. So I've appreciated the 4 clubs and all they've shared. I've heard one common theme that I've heard is care and concern for each of the members, or at least each of the types of members that there are, the beginning, intermediate, and advanced members, but then also going further and having presentations that are sort of at the cutting edge, and also finding different ways to communicate, whether that be in person in meetings or with the Discord or things like Discord and Zoom. And then sort of a little difference about whether the clubs are sort of I guess everybody's within the club, except maybe Novak Maybe I have that wrong. Anyway,
Yeah, we have some people from outside the club, but like 95% of the people who participate in our meetings are members of NOVAC.
yeah, good. Anyway, I just want to say I appreciate you guys coming and showing what you've learned, what's gone well, and what we can learn from you. So thank you.
Any more, Kevin?
I'm
Kevin?
good.
Kevin, other Kevin.
No,
Tommy?
Nope.
nope.
Hey, guys, before we say goodnight, we hang up after the meeting's over. You're all welcome to stay and chat if you'd like.
Well, then it's going to be time to conclude. Next week, Molly is going to be at Nightfall. I'm going to be at Nightfall. She's going to be giving a 4-hour astroimaging workshop, so that ought to be fun. And so you come on out and see us out in the California desert. It's a lot of fun. But I should be back. I don't think Molly will be home in time to see you next Sunday when George is going to come, and George Helios is going to tell us about some things that he does with Nina. Okay, so thank you very much. Who's been working? Who was in charge? I
That's
asked
me.
that earlier.
I got it.
Molly.
Yep.
Okay, Molly's in charge. So Molly, take us out.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good